let's do a tool review. We haven't done one of those in a while. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. Now I'm going to do a tool review for you today, or a machine review. This is my Charnwood 10x8 planar thicknesser. Now in a previous video I did an unboxing of this machine. I assembled it and set it up, so I'll link that up here if you want to check it out. I also did a video on how to set up one of these machines, so I'll leave a link to that as well. So this video is not going to be about that. This is just going to be about the machine itself, what I found, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And yeah, I've had it now for about 9-10 months, and you've seen me, if you're a follower of this channel, you've seen me use this thing a bunch of times. And yeah, if you're a little bit impatient, it's quite a good machine. It's not a high-end machine. It has a few issues, a few things that really annoy me, but other than that, it works really, really well. So that sums it up. And if you want to see more, then let's jump in. Okay, this is the machine in question. This is the Charnwood 10x8 planar thicknesser, or if you're in America, giant or planar. Now, before we jump into the review, I'm not sponsored by, affiliated to, or paid by anybody. This is bought with my own hard-earned cash, as is everything in this shed. I am, after all, just a man in a shed, or man in shed, so I buy and pay everything myself. So it's not sponsored, so it's 100% honest. But it's a pretty decent machine. So it's a 10x8, like I said, so you can plane boards 10 inches wide and thickness boards 8 inches deep. So it's got a pretty big capacity. It's not the biggest one by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not a small machine either. Good and solid. So the tables, both the in-feed and out-feed table, are cast iron. So is the bed for the thicknesser or the planar. The machine top is all cast iron, so everything on the top of it is cast iron. The body is just sheet metal, so it's still pretty solid, but it's sheet metal. The fence is aluminum, so is the guard. The fence is one of the things I don't like about the machine, and the guard is a little bit flimsy as well, but I'll take you through that all now in a minute. Okay, let's start with the jointer, or the planar, the top of the machine, and then we'll flip it over into thicknessing mode. So we start with the top. So like I said, it's two cast iron tables, in-feed and out-feed. They are fully adjustable, and once you adjust them and you set everything up, like I said, I've already done a video on how to do that, so I won't go too deep into it, but we have adjustment screws front and back, and once you adjust and set your out-feed table, you lock that down, you don't move it. You can adjust your in-feed table to make sure that it's in the exact same plane as your out-feed table, and then you can raise and lower the cutting depth here. So it has up to a 2mm depth of cut. Now, I usually would never go down as far as 2mm because that's a pretty large bite to take out of any piece of timber, and you usually end up with a bunch of tear out if you do that. So millimeter to a millimeter and a half, and you'll get a super clean cut out of it. So it's pretty good. The guard, like I said, is aluminum. It's one of the things I don't like. You can unlock it, move it out of the way just with the handle here, lock it back in place. There's another adjustment right here which raises and lowers it as well, and that changes the angle of the guard itself. The guard is locked by this piece here, and when that slides out, that little piece falls out, which is extremely annoying. So that's one of the things I don't like. And that little piece is just to stop the screw from damaging the top of the guard, as I have done already. It's a bit fiddly, but once it goes in, it's locked in place. So you can see that piece fell out. I didn't see it, and I drove the screw into the top of the guard, which marked it. So it's only just to stop the screw going into the guard, but you know, it's a little bit flimsy, but it's not a high-end machine. We'll look at the fence then, and this is an aluminum fence. Once it's locked in place and it's up and working, you set it exactly 90 degrees, it is good and solid. So it doesn't move once you lock it down. The mechanism for changing the angle is a little bit cumbersome, so I'll take you through that now. Okay, here's a look at the back of the fence. So you can see the two locking handles here and here. Once you set your angle, lock it down, and it does lock up pretty solid. There's an adjustment screw here, which is your 90-degree stop. So you can set that once you've set up your machine, your initial setup, set and lock your adjustment screw so the fence always goes back against the 90-degree stop. And here's the handle for locking it down and removing it. A heavy piece of steel here with a bit of spring steel underneath it. And I'm not too keen on this because you have to pull it out across your blades, and you have to catch the bottom part, which is this part, and this can rub across the top of your blades, and I don't like having metal rubbing across my freshly sharpened blades. So it's a little bit flimsy, a little bit cumbersome, but other than that, once you set it and lock it, it works fairly well. I would, however, recommend that you always check when you put it back on that it isn't exactly 90 degrees again before you go and use it, because it can move and it can get a knock and it can go out at 90 if you don't lock it down properly. So yeah, the mechanism isn't great. I'm not a fan of that. Switching between 90 degrees and 45 degrees is a bit of a faff as well. So you loosen the handles in order to get it to flip from 45 or from 90 to 45 degrees or whatever angle you want to set. And it is a bit of a faff back here because there's not much room to spin the handles. You have to keep adjusting them back, and then once you loosen it, you need to pull it up and then try and push it down. So as you can see, it's not the most user-friendly thing in the world. Yeah, I give up. As you can see, it's not very easy to change the angle on it. So the fence mechanism itself is not great, and so I generally just keep it at 90. I don't generally do any angle planing. So that's one of my gripes with this thing, is this fence. Okay, so that's the planer, and just to sum it up, again, in-feed and out-feed tables are cast iron. They are extremely flat. Once the machine is set up, it is extremely accurate, so no complaints there. Only gripe is this fence, but once it's set to 90 degrees and locked down, it is solid, so that's good. And the guard is a little bit flimsy, but again, once it's solid, or once it's locked down, it's solid, and it's not really a problem. It's just when you go using them and moving them, that's when the kind of money-saving aspects of this machine come into play. Right, so onto the thicknesser, or if you're in America, the planer. Okay, in order to convert this into thicknessing mode, then it's very simple. Let's remove the guard. We need to take off the fence. Pull the fence again, that's a little bit awkward. We have a handle that locks down the beds on both sides. So we just release them, nice and simple, just like that. Pull this out-feed table out of the way first, then pull the in-feed table out of the way, and then we just flip over the chip collector, which clicks on right there, and then you're ready to thickness. It is that simple. Okay, looking at the thickness and part of it then, and this is all very simple. So again, we have a cast iron bed. It has a center pillar for raising and lowering it, and it has stabilizing pillars then front and back. So we have 2 in the front and 2 in the back, so it's a total of 5. It is solid, it is robust, it is flat, and it is accurate, so I can vouch for that. There is a couple of things I don't like with it. Again, I will show you that now in a second. It's very simple to raise and lower. We have the handle here for raising and lowering the bed. We have a die or your ruler on the side here, with this little indicator just to give you an idea of roughly where you are. It is pretty accurate, although I wouldn't rely on it too much. I would always check and check again just to make sure that you're to the millimeter. So like I say, it is pretty close, but I would always check as I'm planing. You can just, it's again very simple, raise and lower the bed, lock it off, and you're good to go. This handle here locks out the in-feed roller, so if you ever need to stop anything, you can just lock that off. You also have an emergency stop here, so when you're using the jointer or the planer top, you can just lock out your in-feed roller. You don't need to have that running, and then just to engage it, just release the handle, and again, like I say, there's an emergency stop there. So that's all very straightforward. Works well, and yeah, so now for the things I don't like about the thicknesser. Okay, I have zoomed in on the thicknessing bed, or if you're in America, like the planing bed, and you can see it's cast iron. I have a little bit of rust on it here, but there's guide rails on the side, and hopefully you can see this, and you can see the way it breaks. So it stops here and starts again down the end. Now, on several occasions, I've had a piece of timber twist and bury itself straight into the end of that cast iron rail there. There are cast iron rails that sit either side of your bed. It's just, again, to hold your timber in place. But I don't understand why it has a break in the middle on both sides. So like I say, I've had several occasions where timber has buried itself into the end of that. It has damaged the end of the timber that I'm planing. It has skewed the timber, and it got stuck under the planer, and the planer took a big chunk out of it. And that has happened to me on more than one occasion, so it's something I always have to watch for and be careful with. It's a really bad design. I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they couldn't have continued this rail the full length of the bed, right where the rollers and stuff are, it has a brake in it, and if the roller catches the timber anyway skew, it will twist it and drive it straight into the end of it. So that's a very, very annoying thing, and something I really don't like. But once you watch out for it, it doesn't tend to happen. You don't get any snipe, the odd bit of snipe every now and again, but for snipe this planer is very, very good. But yeah, that's a major annoying thing, and it's a major design flaw. So if Charnwood are watching this, just include a full length rail, please. Okay, here's a look from the other side. You might be able to see it better there. So there's the rails that run down the side on both sides, and you can see the gap in the middle that I'm talking about. Madness. Don't know why they just couldn't have put a full length piece there. There's nothing in the way. There's no reason for that not to be a full length, and yeah, major design flaw. But other than that, planer's pretty good. Okay, while we're on this side of the planer or the thicknesser, here is another thing that really annoys me. Now, it's only a small thing, but once you make the mistake, you will kick yourself. So this is the extraction hood. So that clips on and it just locks in place there. But sometimes you flip it over and it will miss the little catch there. This is only a bit of spring steel with a hole in it. And you have just a little, I don't know what you call it, a little stud coming off the bar there that catches in it. But sometimes you will miss that and that will slip past. You won't see it, and this will hit the top of your timber coming out and scratch the living daylights out of it, which means you have to thickness it even more than you wanted to get all those marks out of it. So again, it's not a great mechanism. It would have been better if there was a flat piece that came out here to stop that from happening. But once you do it once, you won't do it again. So that's just something to watch out for. Just on this side of the machine then, we can see this is the bolt that catches the bar to hold down your bed. So your bed bolt goes in against that and just twists. These are your two adjustment bolts. So your bed sits on these on both sides, and you can adjust this just to make sure everything is level and that both beds are in the exact same plane. Other than that then, on this side we just have, again, our lock stop is here. So you flip it up out of the way, that gives you access to your start stop. Once that's down and you hit that lock, it locks in place, so you cannot hit the start button. So that's all pretty standard, but it works pretty well and I have no complaints there. Okay, here is the business end of the machine. This is the main drum. It contains 3 blades. The adjustment on it is fairly simple. I'll show you that now in a second. There's our in-feed roller here. It's the spline type, so that really does grip the timber and drive it on through. It doesn't mark it too deeply though, so when you do plane it, it does take all those marks out of it. So there's no marks off the in-feed roller once the timber is exiting this machine. Rubber out-feed roller again, so you're not marking your planed surface. Other than that, it's pretty simple. It works pretty well. I have absolutely no complaints with this. It's plenty powerful. The blades are razor sharp when you first get them. You don't have to touch them up too often, so it's a good steel, and the adjustment on them is extremely easy, and I'll show you that now. Okay, there's a close-up of the blades. You can see it there. You have adjustment nuts all the way across the front. They're the tensioners. These have a spring behind them, so all you got to do to adjust this is loosen all these bolts. The spring will push the blade out, and you use this guy, which is the exact same radius as your drum, just to set the blade. Once the blade is just touching off this all the way along, you are good to go. Then you keep your blade level with your out-feed table, and it is bang on. It takes seconds to put your blade in, which is what I really like about this machine. Okay, as for chip extraction, that works really, really well. So the chip extractor, or the hood, works perfectly in conjunction with the DX4000 record power dust extractor. Does the job. That thing catches everything. It's so powerful. That thing gets soak a golf ball through a garden hose, so it has no problem pulling the chips out of this thing. Fills it pretty quick. Obviously, planer thicknesser, they produce a hell of a lot of chipping, so it does fill it fairly fast, but it works pretty well, so I have absolutely no complaints there, and it's easy just to move this thing around for when I'm moving it from thicknesser to planer, or from jointer to planer, so no complaints there. As for the running noise, it's not too bad. It's a fairly smooth machine, so it's not overly loud. I would, however, use my ear protection when I'm using it in conjunction with the dust extraction. It does get pretty loud, and with the material going through it as well, it makes a bit of noise, so definitely ear protection is advised. But yeah, it's pretty smooth and pretty quiet for what it is. Right, just to convert it back into its planer or the jointer, again, just make sure your bed is lower down so that you can flip your hood back around. Lower your in-feed table first, and then lower your out-feed table, because that holds down your in-feed table. Here's your handles. They go up under the screws. Rotate them lock them both in. Nice and simple. Then we just grab our fence, slide that in. Again, making sure not to damage our blade. Really don't like that mechanism. But once we're locked down, it is pretty solid. Flip our guard back over then, and we are good to go. Right, there we go. That has been a quick review of this Charnwood 10x8 planar thickness or joint, or planar thickness or planar joint, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you are in the world, you know what it is. I got a lot of questions on it since I bought it, and people asked me to do a review on it. So there you go. There is that review. Again, I'll leave a link below to where I bought it. I'm not affiliated to anybody. You can see where I bought it and what I paid for it. It's not a high-end machine, but it is pretty solid. I showed you the few gripes that you will have with it. They're not detrimental. They are annoying, but again, you get what you pay for. So a few little design things, if they changed, it would be a bang-on machine. I wouldn't be able to fault it in any way whatsoever. I didn't do a demonstration of me using it because I have hundreds of videos up using this thing. You're probably sick to death of me. You see me use this thing, so you can go back, watch the videos, you can see the results. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Everything is perfectly parallel, perfectly flat, and perfectly 90 degrees. So can't fault it in that regard. It's just that fence, the rails on the side of the thicknesser, the little catch for the hood, and the guard is a little bit flimsy. If those things were sorted out, this would be a bang-on machine for the money. So there you go, guys. Charnwood 10x8 planar thicknesser. That's been my review. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're getting through this thing all right. And yeah, sun's out, so the weather's getting better at least. So take it easy, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Let's do a tool review. We haven't one of those. Let's do a tool review. We haven't one.